So these are the talking points. First, how to find founder audience fit, how to then build the content engine, and how to leverage winners. Does this stuff actually work? So this is a screenshot from our HubSpot here. It's kind of hard to see. This is from this month. I think I took this screenshot on Sunday. We're booking roughly 35 demos per month from LinkedIn. 60K ACV, these are all inbound people who went to our website, filled out the form, and booked the demo. And these are all LinkedIn and inbound, so we close 60K deals in 3-4 weeks. They close at 20-30%, so it's when you get people through this motion, they already have a lot of affinity, they already trust you, they already see you as the go-to option that they want to work with, so it's very different than leads that you might get from a cold outreach. All right, becoming your ICP's number one resource. I think if you don't have founder audience fit, it's like trying to build a sales engine before having product market fit. It's just not going to work. So before you actually start producing content, you need to figure out what your wedge is. I think a lot of people don't start because they think personal branding is about talking about yourself and making yourself famous. That's not the goal. The goal is to become your ICP's number one resource. Why? Because that's how you attract the relevant audience who consists of your ICP, because they want to listen to you, because they get value, and that's how you build trust with them so you can close more deals. All right, the 2 steps to becoming your ICP's number one resource is step 1, map out your ICP's big priorities, goals, pain points, problems, and desires. Big ones, not small ones, not little point solution, but they're trying to go from point A to point B. What is that? Write it all down. And then provide solutions in the form of insights, in the form of playbooks, frameworks, systems that you can share and post about that will actually address these pain points, problems, and desires. Example here, Nathan Latka, we all know him. He doesn't actually talk a lot about his own insights, but he's becoming a number one resource for B2B SaaS founders because he's aggregating other founders. He's creating events like this. He has a podcast where he interviews people. He curates the insights that he's learning from them. So he's becoming a resource to people, and that's why he's attracting a massive audience of his ICPs, which are SaaS founders. The 3 steps to finding founder audience fit: 1, have a relevant expertise for the people that you sell into. If you sell to heads of HR, you need HR experience. If you sell to CROs, you need sales experience. Have credibility, so have actually done something in that field, have accomplished something so that people want to listen to you, and then do interesting shit, meaning you need to be in the dirt, figuring things out, doing stuff yourself right now so you can talk about it. Here's an example, an ideal scenario. Let's say you sell to heads of sales, that's your ICP. And the ideal scenario is that you were previously a CRO, so you have relevant experience, at Gong, so you actually have credibility, and you are currently rethinking and rebuilding your go-to-market approach. So you're actually in the weeds doing stuff that's generating insights that you can then share with an audience. One way to think about it, there is one bucket of all of your ICP's problems, desires, pain points, and then there's another bucket of your unique expertise. The overlap of that is your content strategy. We have 2 scenarios here. Left one, that's great. You have a lot of unique expertise that apply to what your ICPs actually want to learn about. The second one is you don't have a lot of overlap, or you don't have any overlap, and that happens oftentimes. Let's say you sell to Fortune 500 CFOs, and you've never been a Fortune 500 CFO, you have never been a CFO, you don't have any financial background, maybe you're a tech or product person. What do you do then? Well, there's 4 main solutions to that problem. Learn, curate, host, enable. Learn means you learn the craft. Maybe there's some things that you're doing, right? If you sell to CFOs, maybe you're not the CFO, you've never been one, but if you're the CEO, you're running your own P&L. Curate means you take what you can learn from other people and curate that, right? For example, you might be having 5 conversations with CFOs every week, and you can talk about, here's 3 things I learned this week from CFOs and what they told me in these conversations. You can host, this is what Nathan does, right? You can invite your ICPs on a show, on a podcast, on a webinar, and let them share their expertise, and you're the host. And then enable basically means maybe you just acknowledge that you as the founder and CEO are not the right person to do this type of thing, to produce content and be on LinkedIn and talk about these things. And maybe it's your CMO, maybe it's your CRO, maybe it's your head of HR, maybe it's someone else at your company that you can enable to run this type of motion. all right, how Chris Walker is driving 10 million from his personal brand. So I interviewed him on our podcast a couple of weeks ago, and he shared that they are measuring that they drove 10 million in net new revenue in 2023 through his content alone. So that's LinkedIn and his podcast, and that's only his content, right? His team, the company is also putting out stuff, but that's just kind of what they can attribute to him. By the way, that's a 25x SDR. If you think about that, maybe the average SDR makes 100K a year, quota is 4 times that, so the average SDR might bring in, quota hitting SDR brings in 400K in net new revenue per year. 10 million is 25 that, so Chris Walker is replacing through his personal brand, founder brand, through this motion, a 25 people SDR team, if you want to think about it in that way. So this stuff is scalable, right? And there's no reason why it can't go to 30x, 50x, 100x as he's building his audience, because he's not capped by the hours in the day. He's capped by the quality of the content that he puts out. 2 content pillars that drive results, product and thought leadership. Number 1, product. So basically, what are all the pain points your product solves? And then you want to speak to each of them. And then 2, thought leadership. The question here is, what are all the topics your ICPs care about? Speak to them and share insights, tips, strategies, etc. You want to test many different hooks. Here's an example of my post. That one post generated 10 demos for us. This is how you build trust and credibility, by actually sharing expertise that your prospects want to hear. Here's an example of how we might break this down. So you can see here on the left side is the content pillar, and then you have sub-pillars for them. So what are the recurring themes that you want to keep talking about? The way that you see we break it down often is 40% of your content is product, 40 thought leadership, 10 company, 10 personal. But again, that's only a small part. There's 2 main approaches that I would go for. One is a weekly live event. It might also be a podcast, and then a weekly content interview or recording session. Weekly live event, the idea is you do a webinar. There's 2 types of episodes. It's either you presenting something or you interview someone. You do it for an hour. You can bring a live audience, so you can invite your ICPs to it so they can actually ask questions at the end, and you do research on what they actually care about. You do that every week. I break down guests into 3 buckets if you want to interview people. There's ICPs, advocates, and thought leaders. ICPs, and that's, in my opinion, why this type of motion or podcast is a no-brainer, because whether or not you end up building an audience for the podcast, you can just map out your target accounts, who are the 50 companies you want to target, map out the key decision makers within these companies who you would sell into, invite them into your show and say, hey, Chief Medical Officer at Big Pharma, we have a podcast where we talk about what's happening in the medical industry, and I would love to get your insights about what you do and how you see the market and what trends you're focused on. And a lot of them will say yes, because people love talking about what they're learning and their insight. And now you have the foot in the door, you have a relationship with them. Advocates are people who share your point of view on where the market is going. Oftentimes that's your customers, because they obviously believe in what you do and how you see the world. That's why they're customers, so you want to elevate them and have them talk to that, because it's always more credible if someone else makes the case for you rather than you making your own case for yourself. And then thought leaders are who are the people in our space that our ICPs listen to. So figure out, if you're selling to CFOs, who are CFOs listening to? Like, who do they read every single blog post of? Invite them. From that, you then create your bite-sized LinkedIn content, right? Because you now have this long-form video that you can turn into LinkedIn content. Another approach to do this, if you don't want to do a webinar, if you don't want to do a live show because it comes with a little bit more prep, is to get someone to interview you. This can be a team member, your head of content, your head of marketing, someone on your marketing team. Map out, again, what are the priorities, big pain points, problems that the RCPs care about. Prepare questions around those. And then have that person interviewed. You can use Riverside to record that. It's like a Zoom call, right? And then you record it, you transcribe it, and then from there, that's your source for the bite-sized LinkedIn content. Make sure you streamline it, right? That's how you actually can keep this type of motion going for a founder, for a CEO, for an executive who are very busy. Do it always same day, same time. If you do a live event, we do ours always Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern time. Makes it easy. Use a Calendly for guest booking. Again, streamlines it. Batch tasks, so if you need to write content or edit the videos. You can hire someone to do that, and you want to do it in batches, and then you can use templates, how your LinkedIn post should be formatted. Tool stack, I mean, you can screenshot this. There's a bunch of other things you can use. You want to make sure that this stuff is actually driving pipeline, demo requests, and revenue on the back end. How do you do that? First thing is just installing self-reported attribution. That just means on your demo request form, or whatever form you might use, your Calendly that your SDRs use to book meetings, add an extra question that says, how did you hear about us? Make it a free text field that you can then pull into your CRM, your HubSpot, have it there as a custom field. And in the end, what really matters is pipeline results. Now, we use Shield. You can use Taplio. There's a bunch of tools for that to track your content metrics on LinkedIn. The way that I think about it is that every post that I put out is a messaging experiment. I'm testing what's resonating in the market. Some do better than others. 10% of your posts drive 90% of the performance. Do an analysis. Figure out what your winners are. Winners are those 10% of your pieces of content that drive the disproportionate amount of results for you. And so there's a bunch of things that you want to do once you found these winners. One, you want to just repost it. If it's older than 3 months, there's no reason to not post the same thing again after some period of time. Number two, you want to leverage it in other channels. So if you have a LinkedIn post that did really well, can we use it as an ad? Can we use it on our website? Can we use this messaging on our product pages? Can we use these in our outbound emails and have our SDRs use this messaging when they go outbound to people? Tweak and repeat. So this is kind of a version of reposting, right? You can take that, what did already well, and make some tweaks to it and reuse it in that way. And you want to then create hypotheses on why these particular post did well, test that hypothesis. Maybe you're like, well, this did well because I posted on a Wednesday at 12 p.m. Well, next time you post on a Wednesday at 12 p.m., then it should do well again, right? And if it doesn't, then the hypothesis was wrong. And sometimes the hypothesis is right, and so you want to validate. And then once you've figured out what are the true defining characteristics of the things that keep consistently doing well, and then you can use that to iterate on your content strategy. All right, here's just a couple of examples on what to do when you have a winner. The first one is from us. So on the left side, this is an organic LinkedIn post. It did really well, not just in terms of engagement was decent, but also we booked multiple demos from that specific post. And once we saw, okay, it's doing organically really well, we ran it as an ad. Same creative, right? Just slightly different formatted, running through our company page as a LinkedIn ads targeting our ICPs. And so far we've booked 167,000 in sales from that one ad and 8,000 ad budget, right? That's pretty good ROI. So, but that's only because it was already validated. Another one is Comex and Site Improve, where we created content for their founder and their CMO respectively. They ended up using this content for outbound and sales enablement. So this is an example of a content library. So you want to collect every single piece that you put out in a simple library so you can access them at any time. You can then score them based on how they performed. So you have your winners there. And then you can give your, for example, in Comex's case, they added their 3 SDRs to that content library and said, use it in your outbound, right? And so in their follow-up, in their cold emails, they ended up using the messaging of that content and sometimes even linking up the video when it was relevant in their emails. Sales enablement. For Site Improve, we work with Kevin Bobovsky, the CMO there, and they are selling to CMOs. And what started happening is that their BDR team ended up watching every single LinkedIn post that he put out, watching it, and then testing that messaging in their sales calls. And it turns out it really worked because it helped their BDRs stay up to date with the messaging that's currently resonating, because they can hear from a CMO selling to CMOs what is currently top of mind and what's relevant. Safety Wing, another example here, where you can see here we booked 89 demos through LinkedIn ads, where again we leveraged the best performing organic content that we'd produced for the subject matter expert at this company. Spent $21,000 in ads. Here's a HubSpot report. You can see 9 closed deals for $178,000 in net new ARR from these demos that closed. So again, pretty good return. But again, it's because we leveraged the things that were already validated, and then just scaled up the distribution by running it towards their ICPs and target accounts.